back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Angel Baby Kyra. Make sure you like and subscribe. Yes, my eye is swollen. Don't know what's going on there. Please do not comment on it. I already know. Okay. Also, if you hear music in the background, my baby's sleeping, so there's that. Today's video, we're gonna be talking about goth and the subculture of goth. And I don't really know how to say it, but I know there's a lot of discourse on TikTok per usual about what it means to be goth. And obviously, I'm not goth, but I consider myself alternative, and a lot of people will be typing angrily on their keyboard as they do on TikTok as well whenever I say that I'm alternative. And we're gonna get into like the subculture and the difference between subculture and aesthetic and what it means to be goth. And I say this as a person who has done their share of research on TikTok as well as the internet. If I get anything wrong and you are a goth person, please put it in the comments, because I think it's interesting to learn about different subcultures, and I just thought it was interesting and I wanted to talk about it. So if you've been on TikTok, there's a lot, if you're on the like all goth kind of side of TikTok, which I'm on, and I think like the makeup is so cool, but I just cannot get myself to do it. And it's just like, I really love color, but obviously you don't have to just wear all black to be goth. And I feel like people are going to be like, what are you talking about? But let's get the types of goths first. There's trad goth, which is traditional goth, cyber goth, gothic lolita, emo goth, pastel goth, which I feel like I kind of resonate with more, even though I don't really consider myself a pastel goth. New goth, romantic goth, Victorian goth, I don't know why it says death rock, gothabilly, white goth, and glam goth. So obviously there's a bunch of different little niches within this subculture umbrella of goth subculture. Goth culture was really, I don't want to say popular, prevalent in 80s goth. The music is really important, as well as the ideals behind being a goth. People tend to confuse emo and goth interchangeably. There's even like an emo goth, which I'm not really sure what that one is. It says emo's different subculture than goth, but both subcultures share the strong, intense feelings of emotions. And I feel like goth also, if you take a goth person and say like, I don't want to say a normal person because that sounds like derogatory to goth people, just say like an average person versus a goth person. Goth people tend to have ideals, are supposed to have ideals that are different from the mainstream, from the norm, hence why they are not as accepted. Things that aren't necessarily accepted by social norms. And I feel like this is why goth and emo are under also alternative. We're living an alternative lifestyle to what, say, someone who doesn't dress this way, someone who's like in the clean girl aesthetic. But then that's the thing, they can be like, I saw a TikTok the other day of this girl, and she was in full cosplay, like super pink and bubbly, Sanrio, and she was getting ready to go see a Slipknot concert. Now you wouldn't expect her to go see a Slipknot concert, but your aesthetic doesn't define who you are. Subcultures, I feel like, because it is a culture, I feel like there's more substance behind it besides than an aesthetic. Because aesthetic literally means just the outer surface, how pretty something looks, just looks. I feel like a lot of people on TikTok have the aesthetic of goth, but aren't really goth in their ideals.
Conservative goth. Because at its core and at its general heartbeat, the thing that beats and keeps goth alive, it is about rebellion. You know, taking those conservative values of how a man and how a woman should act in society, those traditional gender roles, and destroying them. Not being like, I believe it's my right to bear arms. Wee woo, wee woo. This really panics me that people are taking these actual subculture movements, like goths and punks, and being like, I can make it conservative. No, you can't. And this is not me gatekeeping. Look, if you want to be an absolute corporate baddie and just the mainstream normie versions of, you know, alternative, and dress up like in a gothic way or dress up in a punk way, yeah, nobody's going to say shit. Nobody cares in the real world. We're all too busy in our lives. However, if you go one step further and say, no, you are part of those communities, well, then align yourself with the core values of those communities, right? Dear Lord, just do the bare minimum. It's like they've just seen online, they just went and typed in goth outfits, and just brought the most generic things, and then that makes them goth. No, you just like an aesthetic that has been commercialized by large companies. You're not actually part of the goth or punk movement.
And that brings us to the next thing, which is a lot of people say if you're goth, you can't shop fast fashion, which, if you know anything about Shein, they obviously have a lot of aesthetics that you can choose from that could go with your closet. And a lot of goths say, well, if you're a goth, you wouldn't be supporting fast fashion because supporting fast fashion destroys the environment, it's not ethical, and you're supporting child labor. But then you got the other group of people saying, no, it's fine, not everyone can afford $150 pieces like a dress or shoes. And some people even make the differentiation that no, not demonias, like actual combat boots, which was what was popularly worn in the 80s. And Chad goth, also forgot to mention mall goth, which I feel like goes with the aesthetic, because I think I was reading that they're more of the aesthetic more than the ideals, and that's why they're a mall goth, because they get their clothes from the mall. I think I was reading that somewhere. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think like the whole, I don't know who's like the person to dictate what it means to be goth, but before it was meant that you were really in touch with your emotion and you really like gothic music, some of which include Bauhaus, The Cure, Joy Division, The Sisters of Mercy. A lot of these bands are from the 80s, if you notice, and the 90s, which is where I feel like goth music was at its peak. I'll let this TikTok explain it because I'm losing my train of thought.
If you consider yourself alternative, if you consider yourself grunge, if you consider yourself punk, goth, whatever, under the umbrella of being alternative, if you consider yourself that, do you have radical thoughts? Are you radicalized? I feel like being alternative means that you also have to be radical with your thoughts, because being alternative means that you're different from everyone else. You're different from the masses. So also your views politically, human rights, environmentally would be different than how everyone else thinks. And I think it also plays hand to hand with being neurodivergent, because you are different from neurotypicals. If you are a neurodivergent alternative individual and you don't have radical thoughts, radical beliefs about things, what are you doing? Because historically, being alternative also meant that you were alternative, you were radicalized with your political stance. You were out there protesting. You were fighting the fight for everyone else. You said, fuck capitalism. If you're not doing that, then what are you bringing to the alternative community? Because I know it's all fun and fashion, but the music that we had in the 80s and in the 90s of punk, grunge, was music that it was political music. So how can you listen to that type of music, dress that way, but don't have radical thoughts, don't have radical beliefs?
So, like with everything that TikTok does, it really does TikTokify subcultures. Goth is one of them. I know that it's a trending thing on TikTok that elder goths call new people who are trying to be part of the subculture baby bats, which I think is so cute. And I just think it's really cool that people are still part of the subculture and that it hasn't died out, which a lot of other, I don't want to say subcultures, but niches like scene kind of died out. There's very few people who actually do the scene kind of aesthetic, or even indie sleaze is making a comeback, which I don't really think is really a subculture, but it kind of is, because it ties into like the hipster aesthetic and hipster subculture of finding things that are obscure, no one really knows. And I feel like people also lost I don't really think it's a subculture though, because it's not like from goth, they don't really have like ideals, but it's more of like supporting like the art and indie artists and small artists, obscure artists, and things you wouldn't normally find in the mainstream, or things that mainstream people would not understand. And I feel like TikTok really dampens the importance of subcultures. So I see how like people can get frustrated with other people who are saying that they're goth. And it's also interesting because like some of the people who like harass me on TikTok are goth people, and then anytime they do that and another goth sees them like bullying me, they're like, you're not a real goth, because if you were, you would accept people as they were and you wouldn't be spreading like negativity. And as like, even the aesthetic is really like dark and it's mostly black, but obviously there's pastel goth and there's white goth, which you just interchange the colors of black and white. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought, sorry. Oh, even though the aesthetic is very dark, the people are actually like super nice. Oh, another subculture is the punk scene. Why did I forget that? Oh my gosh. The punk scene, I feel like also kind of aligns with goth too, as in it's a subculture which is very heavily emphasized with the music and punk ideals. Vivienne Westwood also comes to mind. Even though she's not like a musician, she had really punk ideals and also fashion in which she kind of went against the norm. And I think these subcultures are all under the umbrella of alternative, because under alternative I feel like it's just against the mainstream. It's anything that's against the norm, against what's like cookie cutter and kind of expected of you in society, like societal standards. I feel like that's very what everything that all people are against is just like the mainstream. And that's why hipsters are against mainstream. That's why it's kind of like a meme. Like, do you guys know what I'm saying? I forgot. I'm blanking out. Don't want to be like anyone else, want to be unique and want to find community, because a lot of people feel like outcasts, not being accepted by general society, which also I feel like a lot of feel like a lot of all people are also part of the LGBTQ plus community, and kind of find a community within people. And just like even coloring your hair and not deemed acceptable for a job, or like getting a bunch of tattoos, which I understand. There's that one TikTok of that one person that had like a huge septum and like tons of tattoos, and then they're like, don't know why I didn't get the job. Okay, I kind of understand that part, but I feel like if it's just like a couple tattoos and you can like easily cover up, I feel like they shouldn't really discriminate you. Or like, I loved it when I saw teachers that had like colored hair and stuff, because it still shows like you're an individual and you still have your own personality, even though like you're a teacher, or like I'm a mom, I'm still have my pink hair because I'm still Kyra. I didn't lose my identity just because I became a mom. And I feel like a lot of alt people that are truly alt like live by that kind of lifestyle in which they do things that they genuinely like and don't really care about what other people say. Even though like you're still gonna care what people say, but like you're doing things that make you happy. And if having a septum and coloring your hair, going to punk shows, underground things make you happy, then do it. It doesn't matter if the mainstream does not understand or they'll make fun of you or whatever it is. And I feel like a lot of people call those kinds of people like NPCs that don't really have a personality, or like those slideshows that are like my fashion yeses and nos, and then people are like, oh well, what do you dress like? And they're like, bro's an NPC, because they literally just wear jeans and Nike Air. Not that anything's wrong with that. If that's what you like, then that's what you like. But like, you know, like you're judging someone and you're dressing in a way that's really conform to society. It just seems like you're picking on someone because you don't understand them and you don't understand why they enjoy the things that they enjoy, which isn't even for, it's not even none of your business, you know? So anyways, I just think that the discourse is interesting about goth and goth subculture. I might make another video about it and might do a deep dive of the history of like goth culture. I feel like a lot of influencers really adapted this kind of goth aesthetic. I don't want to say that Bella or iGirl isn't goth, but she definitely screams like TikTok goth. I don't really know, like, I feel like she is like punk too, and I feel like she does have punk ideals, but it just seems very TikTok-y to me. Not to like, it's not to like diss her or anything, but like she's like was really my first introduction to like all goth and that kind of aesthetic, and I think it's really cute, but I personally don't think I can pull it off if it's like my aesthetic or what I like right now. But yeah, so thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm on Instagram. Okay, bye.